Welcome to the third season of the Ashlars podcast. We are thrilled about our progress and, more importantly, grateful for your support and encouragement. We are going in strong with ever more energy and passion into the third season of our humble little initiative. That is, to show the true light of Freemasonry by being India's first and only podcast on Freemasonry. In this season, we continue to highlight papers by Indian Masons and showcase the wealth of Masonic knowledge and wisdom in India. Additionally, we will also shine some light on various other degrees beyond the craft, with a view to help Masons discover the true joy of being a Mason and expand their horizons. As a disclaimer, the thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely of the participants and do not represent any official positions, including those of any Grand Lords or constituents thereof. Best efforts have been made to keep the conversation on the level for brethren and non-Masons alike. Hello and welcome, folks, to another episode of the Ashlars. This time it's yet another degree in Masonry that we'll be covering. As you know, we are covering beyond the craft. So what other degrees are there? What more is there in Freemasonry beyond the 3 degrees in craft is what we are covering. This time we will be covering the Royal Ark Mariners. The name is very interesting. There is a Royal, there is an Ark, and there are Mariners. If you take the middle word, the Ark, that is the key over here, and it ties back to the legend of Noah and how he, along with his family and a whole bunch of animals, survived the great deluge, which apparently covered the world. And we derive Masonic teachings out of that. And again, Masonic teachings are nothing but general way to live life better, to be a better person. So before I give too much away, let me hand it back to Rinesh to elaborate a little more on this. And there's one interesting thing about this particular month when we are releasing this episode. So, Rinesh, why don't you go ahead?
Hey, thanks, Shishir, and welcome to each and every listeners as well as who are watching it on YouTube. Uh, the idea behind why we started this entire season was to ensure that people get to know about various other orders which we have, which might or might not be useful. The as we all say, right, in Freemasonry, there is a common theme, there is a common element. So is that in the Ashlars podcast. The common theme over here is knowledge. Continue to perceive it, continue to try to grab it. If you don't want it, that's absolutely fine. If you want it, go for it. That is the idea. Now, when we spoke about the various orders which we have, right? So we obviously covered the Holy Royal Arch chapter. Then we obviously did Mark Master Mason. That's the other day. And then now Royal Ark Mariners. Just as a side note, we have been hearing this quite often, especially for those who might have not understood the difference much. That is Arch chapter, ARCH, because it's literally an arch. And this is an ark, the Noah's Ark, the one amazing story which we have been hearing, I don't know, from many, many years. And I think there is a nice, good song for children also. I think two animals go in a boat, and I'm yet to catch on that song yet, but there is a nice, good song about that entire ark on how Noah actually brought them together, made sure that they are taken care of. So we are going to delve into that. Now, the very interesting part is this, by the way, the actual name I would say is the Ancient and Honorable Fraternity of Royal Ark Mariners. In short, we call it RAM. RAM. Sometimes we, in full Josh, sometimes we just go and say, hey, RAM meeting is actually going to happen today or tomorrow, or whatever. And the point on who can actually join. The most important one is any and everybody who is already a Mark Master Mason. By the way, this is also one of the reasons why our episode is actually after Mark Master Mason degree, because you need to know about Mark Masonry before you jump into RAM degree. Interestingly, in India, Grand Lodge of India, we have the RAM degree. It is connected with the Mark Lodge. So, assuming in my case, I'm a member of Mark Lodge Tech City, number 111 in Bangalore. I have an RAM Lodge also. It's also RAM Lodge Tech City, number 111. In most cases, RAM is actually connected, not most cases, actually, in almost all cases, RAM is actually connected to the Mark Lodge. Shishir is a member of Mark Star of the South. And similarly, he is also a member of RAM Star of the South. Now, does it actually mean I cannot join his RAM? No, nothing of that sort. I can actually join his RAM. He can join my RAM. He doesn't need to be again in the same group. He can actually be part of another RAM lodge also. What we are trying to say is the Mark and RAM degrees, sorry, the Mark and RAM orders in any specific place always has the same number. So they are basically connected to each other. The nautical term for it is mood, Moored. And that's the basic gist of it. Second point, which is interesting, it is obviously followed in India. It is governed under the Grand Lodge of Mark Master Masons of India, GLMMMI. Similarly, it is followed in the English Constitution as well, the under the Mark Master Masons Hall, as well as it is also followed in Scotland. So the Scottish Masons as well, they also get to do that. But we are going to delve into the entire Scottish chapter and the history and the stories behind it after this episode, after the I think the forthcoming episodes. There is RM again resurfaces. It's in Irish who do not have RAM degree. They somehow do, they actually just have an RAM craft. They have an sorry, they have an Irish craft. They have an Irish chapter, and they have an Irish mark, and that's where the story ends for them. At least in these the initial context, they have any every other degree. We are also obviously going to cover them as well, but they do not have an RAM. Now, again, where does RAM again resurfaces? Obviously, in different places. Now, in USA, obviously, RAM is there. It actually comes under, interestingly, in all the other allied Masonic degrees. So there is a website for USA, amdusa.com, in which you get to learn about all the degrees. And it is a beautiful way, right? If it is too small, don't worry, we have an allied body for it because it is small. Not everybody is able to join everything, right? Like it's not possible. So when that order, or rather the entire working, the proceedings, everything is a bit small, they kind of join together, and that might be one of the reasons. And I'm using the word might because I'm actually waiting for receiving two books on this topic, right? On why RAM is actually connected to Mark, and we will obviously dwell more into that.
So, Renish, I think you've already covered the part of why it is called RAM, essentially.
Yes.
But is there anything which you want to just add, maybe a point or two you may probably have missed?
Um, yes.
Mm.
The references, okay, so if I go back to the history of it, this is what I came to know. Obviously, when we were joining, right, Shishir, I'm pretty sure when you were joined, Mark degree was obviously told to us that saying, okay, you need to join a Mark degree, which will obviously be an extension of our fellow craft Freemasonry, and it will give you more information and how work is important, that is important, this is important. But when it came to RAM, we ideally do not even get a good idea what exactly happened. So I was actually looking at the history of it. And interestingly, it is not like it is a degree which was just conjured upon like some 5 years or 10, or sorry, or 50, 100 years back. This degree was in the working back in 1772 on its own. Okay, it was not obviously part of any mark or anything of that sort. At that moment, it was actually just a standalone body. So there are references apparently to a Grand Lodge of Royal Ark Mariners being recreated in 1772. But the degree's early origins, unfortunately, is just lost. As I said, I'm still waiting for a couple of books which I need to get, which might give me more answers, and I will definitely delve into that the next time when well, as soon as I get it and read it. Interestingly, there is a person, Morton Andrew Edwards. Very interesting name, Morton Andrew Edwards. He's a sculptor actually. Back in June the 10th. So today, I think we are recording on 20th of June. So June the 10th, 1884, Mark Grand Lodge at that time purchased from Morton Andrew Edwards the rights of the degree of Royal Ark Mariner. That is something which makes me sit up, and that is why the second book obviously came in my shopping basket. Like, who is Martin Andrew Edwards? What exactly did he have that, and what exactly was he selling? It's written specifically that he surrendered, or rather he provided or he handed over the rights of the degree of Royal Ark Mariner. And guess what? For how many? Obviously, surrendered in the sense it's not like just giving a piece of paper and telling them. Obviously, there is some sort of a transaction happened. That transaction was for 25 pounds, 25 quid he paid to get that degree. That's what Mark actually, sorry, the Mark Grand Lodge did. And that, by the way, that receipt is still in the possession of Mark Grand Lodge, and you can get to see that in Mark Mason's hall. Now
Wow.
think about that. 25 pound, 25 quid is what somebody received for handing over RAM.
So that tells me two things. 25 pounds back then was not a small amount. It's kind of like my grandmother's telling that they, went to a mela or a fair and they roamed around all over the place, enjoyed everything, and they still had money left over. And how much did they take along with them? 1 rupee. What do you get in 1 rupee today? So 25
Exactly.
pounds definitely was a huge thing back then. But the other thing that also comes to my mind is that just how valuable, the people found this information. I mean, what is it basically? It is nothing but transfer of knowledge. That's all there is to it, right?
Mm, mm.
It's a bunch of stories, some ceremonies, whatever. But the value people gave to it is what is immense over here. So 25 pounds in that context may be still a small amount.
Still, exactly. And the interesting part is it took them time to come there. So apparently from 1772, RAM obviously was happening in some lodges. Uh, as it is obviously a bit smaller degree, the entire proceedings is actually not that elaborate, even though it is superbly beautiful. What happened is from 1871, and this is as per the records which is available in the Grand Lodge of Mark Master Mason's Hall. Uh, the Grand Lodge of Mark Master Masons used to handle this from 1871. So you can understand that for almost like 12, 13 odd years, right? They were handling this. Then they officially said that, you know what, we are going to take over all of the workings of these things. Now, the question always is being asked, and there are some curious Masons who came and asking me, what is the necessity? Why couldn't it be actually a own governing body? It has it, but it is in a very different style. So how exactly does it work? It is not like as if just because you are the head of Mark, you're going to become the head of RAM. Nothing of that sort. That doesn't happen. So lodges in Royal Ark Mariners are governed by a worshipful commander, who is actually called worshipful commander Noah, for the obvious reasons, because it's a story of an ark, rather than a worshipful master, which is what we heard in Mark Master Masons. And they are moved, as I said, they're attached, connected, moved to a Mark Lodge, which also takes in the same number from the roll. So for me, Tech City 111, RAM Tech City 111. Star of the South, Star of the South. Same. Now, this is where the similarity actually ends. And there is no other similarity between what story Mark has, what the functioning of Mark has, and what RAM does. That's the point. The Grand Master of the Mark across the place is ipso facto the Grand Master of RAM. Interestingly, I whenever I used to attend these regional the Grand Lodge of India's meeting, right, when this part comes where we have to do the mark meeting as well, I always used to wonder why I am not able to carry the RAM apron, like, because obviously I'm going to attend the mark, right? What am I supposed to wear? But then it was told to me that you don't need the mark RAM apron, you can wear the mark apron. And interestingly, you can actually still wear the jewel of RAM. It is also said, it is not ideally followed, it is also said that you can wear the RAM breast jewel in a mark meeting. I still have to find out, obviously, somebody who can say yes, yes,
That's
definitely yes,
news to
but
me
I've
too.
only read about it. Yes, there are two reasons for it. Very simple is obviously you are eligible to do that. Second, it kind of automatically gives somebody, oh, there is something else as well. But as I said, I am not very sure how whether it is actually blindly followed or not, because I have seen a similar variance in the English craft lodges. In an English craft lodge, you are allowed, and if possible, you're supposed to wear the Holy Royal Arch breast jewel. It is absolutely okay. First will be the craft, and then will be the chapter jewel. That's how it works. So first craft and then chapter.
Fascinating.
Obviously, we are not adding all the orders. This is not like a parade of breast jewels on your breast. Definitely not. That Okay, according to me, it doesn't look that great, but
Mm.
it obviously looks good for on certain folks. It looks good if there are certain numbers, not some sort of a flagpole of breast jewel kept on your and your chest. But anyway, the
But yeah,
point
it.
is
Uh,
you can actually put that. You can actually use that. That is what I've been hearing.
so I think from the standpoint of showing that connection, it does sort of make sense. So that's symbolic and also a visual thing, right? So let's delve into a little more deep into this, right? Now, in this degree work, when someone is being initiated, it's actually called elevation, right? So why do you think we call it being elevated in this degree and not being initiated, for example?
Oh, yeah. So before that, just a simple basic story of it, right? We know what it is. This degree, obviously, almost 1772, I said, it has a nautical tinge to it. The backdrop of the Great Flood, the backdrop of Noah taking care, or rather building the ark, which saved mankind from extinction, from the universal deluge. It has all those interesting characters which we have. Now, as the name implies, it has that nautical tinge to it. As I've been reiterating on that. The word elevation of a candidate in this degree reminds us that God's providence and kindness in relation to what happened during the flood, right? And obviously we will always hear a lot of ifs and buts in these situations. We will always have an opposing view on why he had to do all of these things. All said and done, the story is still a story, and that story is actually something which many people follow. Now, so what did God do for Noah and his family? He ensured that he elevated them, took them out of that deluge in this scenario. Now, during this event, you will actually find that there are comparisons made between the risk of the flood and hazards of life. This is what you will actually get in the degree. And what do we do in that? See, okay, let's forget everything, whether you believe, you don't believe. Whenever such situation happens, whom do you go to? You either go to your parents, you go to your patriarch, or even sometimes your friends, and you expect, if not for anything, at least most of us expect that they might be able to help us. Now, that help is what? I'm in a ditch. I'm expecting she should please help me out. You're going to elevate me out of that. You're going to remove me out of it. And that's exactly why that word elevation is actually, it's actually part of it. How we should endeavor to reach that arc, like I think it is the antediluvians, right? That point which is there. The ark is the resting place, the way it was a resting place for Noah's family and other inhabitants. Our work is to ensure that we reach that place so that we can go through the troubled waters of life, whether it is our work, whether it is our life, whether it is anything with regards to which troubles us, right? That is it. The subject matter derives directly from, obviously the Bible is beautiful, informative, and is guaranteed, this is what we feel, is guaranteed to leave an indelible impact on every candidate. That's why we say a candidate must be a mark master mason, because he will kind of understand that my work is important. And then suddenly in RAM you come up and say, my work is obviously important, and when I fall in a ditch, what happens? Somebody helped me out, right? Who helped me out? Some guy who was actually with me, and all of that story was there. But similarly in RAM you come to know that in the entire situation, what is it that was the last, or should I say, the thin hope, thin ray of hope, what you had was, maybe it was God, maybe it was your father, maybe it was your family, maybe it was your brother, sister, even your child. All of that will matter for you to be coming out of that place. And that's why the word elevation is important. As I said, it has that nautical term to make sure that you are being removed, you are being taken out of there, or removed out of there to be elevated into the ark.
So I'll just add a little from the actual story of Noah, right? I mean, again, talking in broad terms. Now, one thing that anyone who is familiar, at least at a decent level, with the story of Noah from the Bible itself, will realize that it's a story which seems like as if someone has given us the highlights. There is a lot of detail which is missing. There's a ton of detail which is missing. In fact, there was a movie which came out which seemed to try and fill in the gaps, but again, I think there's a lot of creative liberties taken over there. But I think the point here, as is the case with every other Freemasonic legend in different orders and degrees that we have, the point is very simple. The legend or the story or the ceremony is just a vehicle to transfer the teaching to you. The point is not whether the legend is true or not, or how accurate the legend is. The point is, have you understood the teaching that is coming out of it? The outcome. The legend is the output, and the teaching is the outcome, right? So, same way in the Bible story of Noah, the point is that God tells Noah that, hey, there's going to be a huge flood coming your way. Build a big ship or an ark, get all the animals you can round up, and be ready. This is at a time when there was no rain whatsoever. So what does that tell you? Something's going to happen. You don't know what, or rather how big or how immense and when, but you have to be ready for it. And people laughed at Noah, saying that, what's crazy? I mean, what a crazy guy. He's building a boat in the middle of nowhere where it is dry, and he's rounding up animals. And he still does it. Why? Because he had that faith in God, right? And this again comes on the point that the world is filled with a lot of sin, a lot of immorality and whatever. So it probably needs a reset, right? And this big deluge was nothing but that reset. And so Noah believed in what God is saying, did it, and he sailed out. Eventually the flood did come. By that time he had all the animals in, he was ready to get go. So here there are a few things to learn from a Masonic standpoint, or even from a general standpoint. One, be ready for the unexpected. Sometimes your inner voice will give you hints. So be ready for it, be prepared for it. Sometimes it might seem extreme, but it might just be worth it. You never know, right? And then you sort of go into this situation where everything looks bleak. Like in Noah's case, it was raging floods and rains and rocking boat and whatnot. And then you have this full, zoo of animals. You have to make sure they are well fed and they don't feed off of each other, right? So imagine the kind of conflict management this guy would have had to deal with. Yet he managed it. And then he tried to get feedback from the land by sending out doves who got, what to say, a small twig or something. And then he realized that, okay, land is somewhere nearby. And then he finally hit land and new life began. Again,
Yes.
elevating oneself, right? And when you come out of a boat, let's say you get off a boat, you jump and whatever, but there's someone else who's struggling. What do? You put a hand out, they grab your hand and you pull them out. Elevation, right? So that is where things time. And it's very interesting. Again, I was just telling Dinesh before starting recording that we are doing this in June, and just 10 days after this happy birthday sort of thing for this order. So, Dinesh, anything you want to add to this?
No, no, true. I think not only the best part is it's not only in the Bible where you get this kind of a story, right? The Mesopotamian story of the Epic of Gilgamesh, in the Hindu scriptures, the story of Manu, and there are many other places where the story comes in. It obviously makes many people, as you said, there was a time when I used to obviously have to try to figure out, or not a time, I would say there was a time, there is still a time where we always keep on discussing about it. How is it possible that there are so many in not so connected places have the same story? One, did it actually happen for the entire globe of the one which we know about? Which sounds a little dangerous and sometimes obviously scientifically not possible. Also, it could be possible that it might be a certain area. And instead of what we have been hearing about, oh, Noah is actually collecting all the animals, whichever is available, then somebody came and told me, oh, if he had to do it, why did he have to carry a mosquito? I'm like, wow. I never thought about it, but maybe mosquito was, I don't know. I didn't even have an answer for that one. I said, good one. That person was really irritated with the mosquitoes around him. But anyway, so similarly, there was somebody who said, why a lizard? Why a cockroach? I'm like, wow, that's literally dissecting their entire story to come up and like be tenterhooks. But the point is, it might be some animals in his farm, some animals which he would have found it. He just took care of them and brought them inside to save them. Now, is there a possibility that after this situation, Noah and his family were the only family in the world? Well, according to the story, yes. But was it actually the case? We do not know. Because today, if you actually look at it, the story of Adam and Eve, right? We all think that, oh, Adam and Eve are the only one. Not necessarily. If I don't want to counter argue and do not want to disturb the overall faith of it, not necessary. There were obviously others as well, but Adam and Eve were obviously the ones who were following the path of God. They were actually in a very beautiful place, which actually gave them everything. Then they started questioning, which is when it's more of like a father coming up and saying, you live in this house, which is the biggest house ever in the world, okay, which has everything around, but just don't go out. And one fine day, they are like, no, you know what? I want to go out. And they're like, you know what? Get out of my house. It's, if you bring that whole Indian melodrama to it or a Korean melodrama to it, you will kind of get that.
So let me add one thing to this point, which you just mentioned, and I was just watching some video some days back, where there are parallels drawn to this. Now, the point of bringing fire to humans, I think it's a Greek
Mm.
mythology, right? So that's another one parallel where they say that, the devil of Eden or the snake of Eden, what did it basically do? It essentially gave knowledge to the humans,
Yeah.
that tree of life, right? So when they ate
Tree of life and
apple,
tree of knowledge. Tree of knowledge.
tree of knowledge, right? So when they ate that apple, then their eyes open and they realize, oh my God, this is what things are. We are not clothed. We need to clothe. So that sense sort of dawned upon them. Same way when fire was given to humans, the humans then realize that, hey, there's a lot we can do with this. We can forge
Yeah.
things. We can cook food. We can, keep ourselves warm and whatnot. I mean, it's one of those fundamental things that really, sort of blew apart the ignorance of humans. And so it could be spun in many different ways, but the point is that there are parallels that can be drawn. I'll share another one thing. If I remember correctly, it was about the Mediterranean Sea, I believe, the sea between Africa and Europe. It was supposed to be a barren land. I mean, in the sense there was no sea or something over there for a very long time, but a geological event happened and that sea formed over a period of months. Now imagine someone witnessing that, living in that general area. For them, first and foremost, going so far back, the world itself would have been a huge mystery. I mean, whatever they see around them is their world. They may not realize that where they're standing right opposite side of the globe, there is probably something else, right? So their definition of world is also something we need to think about in context to their time. So seeing such a huge flood happening would have been like, oh my God, the world is flooding. That's the one
It,
part.
it might
Second,
have been a small area. It might not have been the entire sea
exactly,
kind of stuff. It might be a small area. But that area, see, that for them, that is the world. Honestly
correct.
speaking, that's the world. And
And we have
if
to
you see
also
all of those, mhm,
keep one more thing in mind, that we do not know how the geography was back then, right? Because we know the world as it looks today was not how it was many years ago. It looked very different. India was not part of Asia at all. It was actually
mhm,
stuck to Africa and Madagascar. It
mhm,
moved up, hit Asia, and that is where you have the Himalayas, and then you have
forming.
all the other countries after that. But we have to contextualize things when we talk about it. That's all, folks. We sincerely hope that you liked our episode and got a glimpse into the fascinating world of Freemasonry. If you have any queries about what we have shared on the podcast or about Freemasonry in general, please check out the show notes for links to the Grand Lodge of India's website, or write us an email, which is the Ashlars podcast at gmail.com.